There are rehearsals that no one plans for, not the ones in the schedule, not the ones that appear on the call sheet with their precise start times and scene numbers and the names of the actors who are expected to be in them. The rehearsals that happen in small rooms off the side of the set, with no cameras present and no script to follow, between a person who is famous and a person who is not, about something that has nothing to do with the production and everything to do with the human situation that exists just outside the frame of every camera, on every set, every day of every shoot. Robin Williams gave these rehearsals many times. He gave them without scheduling them, and without announcing them, and without any expectation that they would be remembered or recorded. He gave them because he was the kind of person who noticed when someone in the room needed something, and once he noticed, he could not unnotice, and once he could not unnotice, not doing something about it was not available to him as an option. This is the story of one of those rehearsals. It happened on the CBS television set in Los Angeles in October 2013, during the production of a comedy series called The Crazy Ones. It happened between Robin Williams and a 26-year-old set production assistant named Claire Nakashima. It happened 45 minutes before a scheduled scene, and it delayed the production by 45 minutes, and it was witnessed by a director named Pam Fryman and a cameraman named James Whitfield and a production assistant named Carol Park, none of whom have ever spoken about it publicly, and all of whom have thought about it many times since. This is what they saw. The Crazy Ones was a CBS comedy series that premiered in September 2013. It was Robin Williams' return to weekly television after a gap of many years, and the production carried the specific energy of a set organized around a performer of his stature, the heightened attention, the calibrated professionalism, the awareness among everyone present that what they were making was being made possible by someone whose presence changed the quality of the room. Robin Williams was, by every account of everyone who worked on the production, exactly the person you hoped he would be. He knew the crew members by name. He arrived prepared. He was generous with his scene partners, and generous with the supporting players, and generous with the people who were paid less than everyone else, and whose names appeared on no credits, and who showed up every day to make the production possible from the ground up. He noticed people. Claire Nakashima had been working as a production assistant for 18 months when The Crazy Ones went into production. She was 26 years old. She had come to Los Angeles from Portland, Oregon, 2 years earlier, with the specific ambition of working in television production, not as a performer, not as a writer, but as the person who made the making of things possible. She was good at her job. The people above her on the call sheet said so. She showed up early and stayed late, and knew where things were, and anticipated what was needed before it was asked for, and did not need to be told the same thing twice. She was also, in October 2013, in the specific situation that 26-year-olds in their first serious jobs in expensive cities sometimes find themselves in, stretched thin in the particular way of a person who is managing more than their circumstances comfortably allow. Her mother had been diagnosed with cancer in August. Not a manageable diagnosis, aggressive, late stage, the kind that transforms the practical architecture of a family's life almost immediately. Claire was the eldest of 3 children. Her father had died when she was 12. There was no one else. The cost of her mother's treatment exceeded what the family could cover. Claire had begun sending money home in September, which meant that her own life in Los Angeles had become an exercise in the specific austerity of someone who is living on what remains after the essential obligations have been met. She had not told anyone at work. She was not the kind of person who told people at work. She showed up and did her job and kept the rest of it in the part of herself that was not on the set. She had been thinking, by October, about whether to go home. Not permanently, or maybe permanently. She didn't know yet. But the distance from Portland had begun to feel like a specific kind of wrongness. The wrongness of being far away from something that requires your presence and trying to substitute money and phone calls for the thing that actually cannot be substituted. She had not decided. She was holding the decision in the way that people hold decisions they are not yet ready to make. On the morning of October 14th, Claire Nakashima was on the CBS set at 6:45 in the morning, which was earlier than her call time, because she was the kind of person who arrived before her call time. She was in the small equipment room adjacent to the main set, organizing cables, when Robin Williams arrived for the first blocking rehearsal of a new scene. He was early too. They were the only two people in that particular corner of the set for approximately 4 minutes before the rest of the crew began arriving. Robin Williams set down his script and coffee and looked around the room and saw Claire arranging cables in the equipment corner and said good morning in the specific way. He said good morning to everyone directly, like he meant it. Claire said good morning back. Robin Williams looked at her for a moment with the quality of attention that was his most fundamental characteristic, the comprehensive, genuine, directed attention that the people who worked with him always mentioned when they were asked to describe what it was like to be around him. He was not performing attention. He was paying it. He said, "Are you all right?" It was not a pleasantry. It was a question. Claire said yes. She said it in the automatic way that people say yes to that question when the true answer is more complicated than the setting warrants. Robin Williams nodded. He did not press. He picked up his script. The crew began arriving. The morning moved into its production routine, but he had noticed, the way he always noticed. The scene scheduled for that afternoon was a moderately complex comedic scene involving Robin Williams' character and two supporting players. It had been rehearsed once in the table read and once in a partial blocking session and was scheduled for its camera rehearsal at 2:15 ahead of a 4 o'clock shoot. At 1:30, before the camera rehearsal, Claire Nakashima was in the small room off the side of the main set, the room that served as a secondary production space and occasional quiet corner. A functional room with a table and some chairs and the ambient clutter of a working television production. She was eating lunch alone. She had a call to make to Portland that she did not want to make in the general space of the production offices. She was composing herself to make it. Robin Williams found her there. He had not been looking for her specifically. He had come to the small room to review some pages in quiet before the camera rehearsal. He saw her there. He saw her expression. He recognized what was in it. He said, "I'm going to ask again. Are you all right?" And this time, something in the question, or something in the expression with which it was asked, or something in the specific state Claire was in, or some combination of these, made her answer differently. She said, "Not really." She said it simply, without drama, the way people say the true thing when they have been carrying it alone long enough that the opportunity to say it outweighs the habit of not saying it. Robin Williams closed the door behind him. He sat down across from her at the table. He set his script pages on the table and folded his hands on top of them and looked at her with his deep-set brown eyes, holding the specific quality of attention she had seen briefly that morning, and which now, across a small table in a quiet room, was entirely directed at her. He said, "Tell me." She told him. She talked about her mother and the diagnosis and the treatment and the money and Portland and the decision she was holding. She talked about being the eldest child and what that meant in a family without a father, and about the specific arithmetic of being 26 in Los Angeles on a production assistant's salary when the people you are responsible for are 600 miles away and in need of more than money. She talked about the job, about how much she loved it, and what it had cost her to get here, and what the thought of leaving it cost her, and how she had not yet found a way to make the numbers work in any configuration that didn't require giving something up that felt essential. She talked for approximately 15 minutes. Robin Williams listened for all of it with the same quality of attention, not interrupting, not offering premature reassurance, not redirecting the conversation toward the available comforts. He listened the way he listened when he was genuinely in a room with a person, as if what they were saying was the most important thing being said anywhere at that moment, because to him, in that moment, it was. When she stopped, he was quiet for a moment. Then he began to speak. He did not give her advice. He did not tell her what to do about Portland, or the money, or the decision she was holding. He spoke about his own experience of the specific fear she had described. The fear of being the person that other people depend on when the resources available to you are less than the dependence requires. He spoke about it without performing the sharing of it, without the managed warmth of a famous person deploying their personal history as a therapeutic tool. He spoke about it the way he spoke about everything real, directly, from the inside, as a person who had been in a version of the same room and knew what it was like to stand in it. He talked about the distance between what is possible and what is needed, and the specific exhaustion of living in that gap. He talked about the thing that happens to a person's relationship with their own work when the work exists in the same time as something else that requires more of them than the work does. He said, "The job will wait for you. Good work doesn't disappear. You don't disappear from it, even when you're not in the room." He said, "Go home when you need to go home. The set will be here. What won't wait is what won't wait." He said this last thing in the specific way of someone saying something from their own accumulated experience, rather than from a general principle, the weight of it coming, not from its wisdom, but from the specific person saying it, the evidence of 30 years of working in rooms with people who needed things, of noticing and responding and returning and doing it again. Claire Nakashima has said, in the account she gave to a journalist friend 3 years later, an account that was never published, that she gave because she needed to give it to someone and not because she wanted it public, that what Robin Williams said to her in the small room that afternoon did not change the practical facts of her situation. The money was still short, the distance was still real, the decision was still unmade. What had changed was how she was carrying the facts. She said, "It was like the weight was the same, but the thing I was carrying it with was different. Like, he gave me a different, a different material to carry it with. Something that didn't break the same way under the same pressure." Pam Fryman, the director, came to find Robin Williams at 2:17, 2 minutes after the camera rehearsal was supposed to begin. The small room was the third place she looked. She opened the door and saw him sitting across from a production assistant she knew by sight but not well. She took in the scene. She closed the door again. She told James Whitfield, the cameraman, that Robin was running a few minutes behind. James Whitfield, who had been in the industry for 22 years, said, "Okay," and went back to his setup. Carol Park, the other production assistant on the floor that afternoon, saw Pam come back without Robin and said, "Is everything all right?" Pam said, "Yes." She said it in the specific way of a director who has just made a professional decision to absorb a delay rather than interrupt what is causing it. At 2:32, Robin Williams came out of the small room. He walked to the main set. He said something brief and warm to the two supporting players who had been waiting. He said something to Pam. He took his position for the camera rehearsal. He was on set from 2:32 until 7:40 in the evening. Pam Fryman said later, not publicly, to a colleague that the performance Robin Williams gave that afternoon in the camera rehearsal and the subsequent shoot was some of the best work she had seen him do on the series. She said it with the specific precision of a director who watches performance carefully and knows the difference between work that is technically accomplished and work that is alive. She said it was alive. She did not know exactly what had happened in the small room. She had an understanding of the general shape of it. A person in difficulty, Robin Williams sitting with them, but not the specific content. She did not ask Claire about it. She did not ask Robin about it. She let it be what it was, a private thing that had happened in a production space, and that was not the production's business. Claire Nakashima went home to Portland 3 weeks later. She took a leave of absence from the production. She was with her mother for 4 months. She came back to Los Angeles in February 2014. The production had been canceled by then. The Crazy Ones did not return for a second season, but her career in television did not end. She found the next job, and the next. She is still in the industry. She is good at her work. She has never spoken publicly about the afternoon of October 14th. She told the story once, to the journalist friend, 3 years after it happened, and that account was not published. She has held it in the private way that people hold the things that mattered most in the moments when mattering most was what was needed. Robin Williams died in August 2014. Claire Nakashima was in Los Angeles when she heard. She was on a different set, doing the same work she had been doing when she met him. She left the set for an hour. She sat in her car in the parking structure and thought about the small room and the 45 minutes and what he had said about the thing that won't wait. She went back to the set. She did her job. She has thought about the October afternoon many times since. She has thought about the specific quality of what Robin Williams offered her in that room, not advice, not solutions, not the managed generosity of a famous person doing something kind for someone who is not. Simply presence, simply the willingness to be in the room with what was real, and to stay there until the staying had done what staying does. The last rehearsal, not the one in the schedule, not the one that appeared on the call sheet at 2:15 on October 14th, 2013, in the camera rehearsal notes for The Crazy Ones, Season 1, Episode 7. The other one, the one that happened in the small room off the side of the set, with the door closed, between a man who noticed and a woman who needed to be noticed. 45 minutes before the cameras opened and the work began. That was the rehearsal that mattered. That was the performance no one was there to review. That was the room where the most important scene of the day was played, without script, without camera, without audience, without any of the machinery that converts private moments into public records. Simply a door closed, a table, 2 chairs, a question asked genuinely, "Are you all right?" And this time, the true answer given, and received, and held, for 45 minutes, in a small room on the CBS lot in Los Angeles. On a Tuesday afternoon in October 2013, Robin Williams rehearsed the thing he had been rehearsing his entire life. Being present with another person in the specific room of their difficulty. No camera recorded it. No review was written. No award was given. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that belongs to the person who is the eldest child in a family that has lost its center. It is not the exhaustion of physical labor, though it manifests in the body. It is the exhaustion of sustained vigilance, the specific tiredness of a person who has been the one who notices what others need and who provides it, for long enough that the noticing and the providing have become so automatic that the person themselves is no longer certain where their own needs begin. Claire Nakashima had been carrying this exhaustion for years before October 2013. She had carried it through her father's death at 12, and through the years of being the oldest in a household that needed an oldest who could function as more than a child, and through the specific discipline of building a life in a new city that was organized around a career she believed in and that required everything she had. She had carried it with the specific grace of someone who has decided that the carrying is simply what is required, and who has made their peace with the requirement. What she had not done, in all those years of carrying, was set it down in a room with another person and let the other person see what was in it. She had not done this because the opportunity had not arisen in the right form. The right form was not sympathy. The right form was not advice. The right form was not the gentle interrogation of a person who wants to help, but whose wanting is more about their own need to be helpful than about the actual situation of the person they are with. The right form was what Robin Williams offered on the afternoon of October 14th. A closed door, a table, a question that was not a pleasantry. And then, after the answer, the specific quality of presence that meant, "I am here with what you have just said, and I am not going to manage it into something more comfortable, and I am not going to leave it until it has been what it is." Pam Fryman, who had been directing television comedy for many years, and who had worked with many performers of significant stature, said something to James Whitfield on the afternoon of October 14th that Whitfield would recall years later. She said it quietly, in the way of one professional speaking to another about something they both understand without needing to explain. She said, He's always doing this. Whitfield said, "Doing what?" Pam Fryman looked at the closed door of the small room. She said, noticing. James Whitfield nodded. They waited. Carol Park brought coffee. At 2:32, the door opened, and Robin Williams came out, and the afternoon's work began. The scene they shot that afternoon involved a comedic sequence in which Robin Williams' character had to convey, simultaneously, professional confidence and private uncertainty, the specific comedic territory of a person who is performing competence while actually operating from a position of not knowing what they are doing. It was a scene that required a particular quality of authentic vulnerability beneath the comedy. It required the performer to be genuinely in it, rather than performing being in it. Pam Fryman said it was the best take of the scene in the entire series run. She said this not to anyone who was writing it down. She said it to James Whitfield after the shoot, when they were reviewing the day's footage. She said, "Look at take 4. Look at his eyes in take 4. Whitfield looked at take 4. He said, "Yeah, that was enough." Two people in a profession that deals in the specific craft of human performance, saying yeah about a take that had something in it that could not be produced by technique alone. The thing that comes from having been 30 minutes before the camera opened, genuinely present with another person's real difficulty, the thing that carries over, the residue of actual human connection in the eyes of a performer who has just been in a real room doing a real thing. The last rehearsal made the last performance. Not the rehearsal in the schedule, the other one, the one no one was paid to attend.